I think in general for a transition, the clients want to make sure that they're being well looked after. I don't think anyone really wants to shop around for a new advisor. So I think as long as you communicate, show that you care, and show that you're going to take the job as seriously or even more seriously than your parent, you'll have a good transition.
Being an advisor is such a personal thing. You attract clients that kind of, align with your morals and your interests. And so I'm trying to embrace those things while also kind of slowly implementing some of the new things that I want to do and that I'm interested in.
Hi, I'm Chris Reynolds. And for my entire career, it's been my mission to help independent financial advisors build a better business through a remarkable client experience. In this podcast, you're going to hear from the visionaries, from the leaders, from the independent advisors who are reshaping the future of the financial advice industry. At the end of each episode, I'm going to leave you with at least one winnable idea that you can start implementing right away. Let's turn the page on building a better business. Welcome to another episode of Turning the Page. I'm your host, Chris Reynolds. And today we have a great topic that I get a lot of questions about on a regular basis. Because we're in the middle of this generational thing that's going on. We're having people now looking at the succession planning of their business. And a lot of people want to bring their kids into the business. And why wouldn't you want to bring your kids into the business? It's a great business. We get to talk to people all day. We get to help them with their problems. We get to give them guidance throughout their lives. We get to hold their hands when times are rough. And we get to be there with the celebrations. So we get a lot of questions. How do I bring my kids in? What should I look for? And so I have two experts in this, people who have actually already gone through the process, and I can say very successfully gone through this process. So today I have Stephanie Power, all the way from beautiful Newfoundland, and I have Jason Simpson from beautiful Ottawa joining us today. Both of them, again, have gone through a transition. Their parents were very successful advisors, built great businesses, but now they've taken them over and they're doing a great job. So welcome, Stephanie, and welcome, Jason.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks for having us.
Stephanie, did you ever think that I'd haul you on to a podcast so that you could give all this knowledge to people?
I don't know. You can never tell what you're going to do next. So it's not out of the realm of possibility.
And I know, Jason, we've been talking for a long time about this particular topic. And as I said, you've gone through the ups and downs. And I also want to give a personal plug for Jason. He's done such a good job. He actually looks after my own mother's stuff. And my mother's like, oh, he's so cute. He comes over to the house and he helps me with my taxes. And she just ignored Gary, who is Jason's father. She's like, I don't even need that guy anymore. I got Jason. So I can tell that at least you got one happy customer there.
Well, it's good to know we have at least one.
You got at least one.
Yeah.
So let me ask you guys some questions here. What motivated you or inspired you to get into this business? Like both of you, very bright. You could really done anything with your lives. So Stephanie, what was the motivation? Why get into your parents' business?
I think, the classic answer is I'm entrepreneurial in nature. I did business in school. I like the idea of participating in the decision-making of a business. I also wanted to be client-facing. In my previous career as an accountant, I was kind of in the back room, in the bullpen, working away, but I never had any interactions with clients. So I really wanted to build those relationships. And then also in speaking with my mom about it, I just saw how much happier she was after she moved from a bank setting to, running her own business, both financially and also in quality of life and time with her family. So that was really appealing to me.
Excellent. And so how about you, Jason? What motivated you? What inspired you to get into this business?
Yeah. So when I was a teenager, I'd worked at a few local businesses around the west part of Ottawa where I grew up. But there was this one pizza shop I worked at. I was 17. They were very successful, but it was a family-run business. One of the brothers lived above the restaurant. The daughters would be answering the phone, but they made a lot of money. They worked really hard and it was fun. So that was a good family business experience. When I left, I grew up a little bit and left my job at the pizza shop. And around my 20th birthday, my dad approached me to work with him. And I knew he was a hard worker. I knew he took it seriously and that he was successful. So I thought, okay, I've worked in a family business before. I've seen it be successful. And the worst case scenario is I work for a few years. I learn about money. I learn about investing, and we go from there.
Yeah. How could it hurt? Absolutely. Yeah. And you ended up, you loved it.
Yes. Yeah. 15 years later, we're still here.
Has it been 15 years? Wow. That just makes me feel old right there.
Me too.
So how about, let's talk about the experience of taking over from a parent. How was that? And really what I want to delve into here is what was different? In other words, where did you see that you could add value that was different from what your parents were doing? And what did you see was, I thought it wouldn't work, and then I'm like, yeah, you know what? My parents were right. This is the way I should have done that. So I'm gonna start with you this time, Jason. What was your experience like, and where did you change things, and where did it go back and stay with the tradition?
So my dad, when I first started, I kind of just assumed his schedule, and then I realized pretty quickly that he just worked all the time, all morning, all day, all night, Saturdays, Sundays, and I realized I wasn't going to be able to sustain that for my entire career. So I was always looking at where can we be a little more efficient? Where can we systemize things? And to your point, there were things that I tried to systemize that I realized, you know what, there's no way around this. We're just going to have to do it.
It's impossible.
Yeah. And there's other things that very quickly we eliminated and realized, you know, why were we doing that for the last 20 years kind of thing. So that's one example.
No, that's great. Stephanie, how about you? When you came in with fresh young eyes, looking at this business, what were your experiences?
I think the biggest thing was differences in personalities. I mean, my mom and I share kind of the same core values, which is important when you're taking over a business. You can't just come in and change everything. It's not going to work. But, you know, I'm more math and science, analytical, whereas my mom is really good at the relationship building side of things. So I think coming in and being able to add fresh eyes to the tech that we're using and some of the systems for planning and projections, I think that really helped. And I think clients really took to that pretty well. And I am still and always learning from her about the relationship building side, because you can't fake it. You have to be genuine. And I think that's really important when dealing with clients.
Yeah, very much. Very much. And they probably see you as they saw your parents. So it is an easier transition, that extension. All right. So now what everyone wants to know is, how do you make it a smooth transition? So maybe tell me about your experiences, like exactly what you went through and how long it took, because a lot of people really underestimate this and the length of time that it takes to take over this business. So Stephanie, I'm going to start with you. What makes it smooth? What was the length of time? And what did you learn through that transition?
Sure. I worked with my mom for 10 years.
10
before
years.
Taking over. Yeah, 10 full years. And I think what really worked for us was that we operated our book of clients as a joint book. So instead of, you know, I have my clients and she has hers, we operated it together as a team. So if a client called and she wasn't here, they could deal with me. And that was really a good introduction and allowed me to, you know, kind of show off some of my strengths to clients as well.
Right. And so there wasn't any difficulties once she actually did pull back, nothing?
No. Well, the other thing is, I mean, she's still here. She's retiring at the end of this year completely. But what happened was, when we decided that I was going to take over, she decided to stay on for 2 years and just work part-time. So scaling back to part-time allowed myself to kind of get in front of clients more, because I'm here at the office full-time, and they can call and talk to me. And there is a certain element that a client is going to go to what they're used to if they're still there.
Sure. Yeah.
So you kind of have to gently force that along a little bit.
Yeah. No, and I've heard that as well. How about you, Jason? What made it smooth? What was the length of time? And what did you learn through that process?
Yeah. So, well, like Stephanie, we kind of took a team approach because we had that luxury. My dad wanted to keep working, and he's still working, although just like Stephanie's mom, he's scaling back into retirement. So that helps. But what we did, what our basic approach was during the transition was, we took it on a kind of a client by client basis. we went through their file, we went through their portfolio. I'd asked my dad, not just about the numbers, but also what are they like? What is their personality? What are they going to find most valuable? And we really took our time with it, again, because we had that, with the ability to do so, since we're family and we were in it for the long term here. So that made the meetings go really well. There was some opportunity to consolidate investments, save on costs potentially with certain people. But mainly, we just really wanted to do a very warm introduction, add value where we could, and make sure everyone was comfortable. And it went well. In terms of the timing, we moved about a third of my dad's book 7 or 8 years ago when I first made the switch to IROC, and then the other 2/3 are just about wrapped up now. So we kind of did it in 2 parts, and for better or for worse, it's worked out for us.
Actually, that's an interesting point, and one that probably we should explore. Is you went to IROC while Gary stayed on the MFDA, and that was sort of the process to eventually move the book to IROC. Any comments on how the clients adjusted to that, and were they pretty happy?
Yeah, I think for some, there were bigger benefits than others. We tried to make it so that there was never a downside. It was either going to be a neutral lateral move or a positive to the bottom line. So that was good. Although I will say that, when it comes to the MFDA to IROC and the father to the son,
Right.
it adds a different dynamic. You're trying to get someone to like you, and meanwhile you're throwing a little extra paperwork at them, which they might not be thrilled to do. So it's a little counterintuitive, but we made it through, and it's worked well for our clients and for us.
No, it seemed to work well. So what advice would you give somebody who's going through that right now? Like what are the things that you definitely don't do, and what are some of the things that you should do? And I guess I'll go back to you, Jason, and I'll go, what are the things that, absolutely don't do this, and and here are the things absolutely do this?
Yes. So you mean from a transition from a parent or MFDA to IROC?
More around the whole transitional period of going through it. Like, what are the things that you just said, absolutely, whatever you do, we tried this, don't do that. And maybe there's nothing, but what would be one of those things that hit?
I guess if there was something to not do, I guess it would to not be too rigid in your planning. You have to have a plan, and it's going to work 80% of the time. But I have a couple clients who don't have email addresses. Right. There's always going to be these curveballs that you have to adapt to. Yeah. So be flexible, stick to the plan, but be flexible. But I think in general, for a transition, the clients want to make sure that they're being well looked after. I don't think anyone really wants to shop around for a new advisor when their current one leaves. So it is kind of a service to them to plan the succession for them as well. So I think as long as you communicate, show that you care, and show that you're going to take the job as seriously or even more seriously than your parent, you'll have a good transition. So yeah, we had a plan. We did it pretty efficiently. And yeah, making sure clients were comfortable was the number one priority.
That's number one. Oh, I think that's great advice. How about you, Stephanie? What are the things absolutely not to do, if there is any, and what are the things you got to do?
I think absolutely not to do, and we were really careful not to do, or myself especially, is to come in with your fresh eyes, thinking you know better than your parent or your successor. Sorry, and just wanting to change everything all at once. It's a lot of change for a client to go to a new advisor. So I think what I really tried to do was embrace the similarities that I have with my mom. Being an advisor is such a personal thing. You attract clients that kind of align with your morals and your interests.
Right.
And so I'm trying to embrace those things while also kind of slowly implementing some of the new things that I want to do and that I'm interested in.
Right.
That's good advice.
Yeah, that is good advice. And one that I have actually seen in live action, where somebody else, the next generation comes in and tries to completely change everything. And it's so disruptive that they get a lot of feedback, and the parent ends up coming back into the business to kind of patch everything back together. So I think that's really good advice.
Yeah.
Right. They were clients for a reason, I always say.
That's right. And back to Jason's point, I have heard a lot from clients that they were starting to worry about what was going to happen to them once my mom retired. They knew that she was going to retire sometime. That's the whole point of, helping other people to retire.
Yeah.
So I've heard that a lot of them were really happy to find out that I was in this for the long haul and that I would be around for the next 20 plus years. And that gave them a lot of comfort.
No, absolutely. And it's almost a responsibility of every business owner of some sort of succession planning. And certainly when you can do it in an intergenerational time, like you guys have gone through, it's even better because it keeps in the family, keeps that personality. Well, here's a question. Now that we're thinking about it, you guys have gone through a succession plan with your parents, but now you own that business. Now it's your business. So Stephanie, a thought is now that you've actually taken over this business, now you have to start thinking about your succession plan. So have you started to think about that? And what do you think that would look like? And what are your alternatives?
Absolutely. I mean, my daughter is 7, and I feel a responsibility to my own family as well to kind of make sure that they're taken care of should something happen to me. So I've already started thinking about, am I going to bring on a junior advisor and kind of they be my succession plan? We're still fairly early, but what about in an emergency situation? Is there something that IPC can do for me to help my husband sell the book if or take it over if something were to happen to me? So take that off his plate in an emergency situation. So those are the things I've been exploring. Even though I've just taken over, it's never done. You always have to work on the succession plan.
Yeah, no, but as a planner, I think it's your responsibility to do that. And to your point, at IPC, we do have a succession program that is in place that the company can help you with. So, that's always a fallback position, that, without any of the other alternatives. How about you, Jason? Have you even thought about it, or how do you look at it for the next, I know you got a long way, both of you have a long ways to go, but you just never know.
Yeah, it's a good question. I've just started redoing my wills, and that's going to include a secondary will that'll talk a bit about what to do with the business. But I probably should engage with IPC's team on that end as well, to make sure everyone's aware of my intention. On this note, I think my lawyer owes me an email. You got me wondering about that, but yeah, that's where I'm at with the process. And you're right. You never know what could happen, so it's important to have it planned out.
Yeah, no, I think that's good advice for everyone. So I'm going to go back. Any final words? What's your advice to the next generation? So Stephanie, what would be, if I was here and I was going to be taking over my parents' business, what advice would you give?
I think it's important to know that, I want a great retirement for my mom, and she wants a great career in life for me. So we're on the same page. The end goal is the same. So really, you just have to work out all the details. You can get stuck in the weeds sometimes, but just if you always keep that in mind, you're going to get there.
You're going to get there. How about you, Jason? What would you be saying to the next generation?
Yeah, I really like the advice you've been giving here, Stephanie. And to kind of piggyback off that a little bit, I think when you're working with a parent or a family member, you want to leverage the relationship that they have with the clients. It's there. You might as well take advantage of it. It's a good way to build trust quickly, but also not to be afraid to show your own personality and to bring new things to the table if they're going to add value, because I think clients appreciate that. But like Stephanie said, you can't come in day one and flip the whole business upside down.
Right. Well, yeah, I would certainly concur with that. So I always do in my podcast, I do what I call a rant, and you guys have probably heard my rants, at least in writing over the last 15, 20 years. But the rant really is about succession planning. And I have talked about this topic on other episodes, but it's about that responsibility. The responsibility to your clients, to your family, is to make sure, and Stephanie, you said it, that they want to know that someone's going to be there looking after them for the next 20 years. They know that, in this case, your parents weren't necessarily going to be there forever. And people want that confidence. They want to know that there's going to be some continuity with the advice they're getting, and that it's been helpful, and it's going to get them to where they want to go. So my rant is, if you do not have a succession plan, get one. And you guys may have heard this because we did a survey of how many advisors what percentage of advisors actually have a written succession plan of any kind, whether it's with their kids or anything. And it's actually less than 11%, which I found incredible considering we're in the succession business. Like, we help people with retirement, we help people with business succession. So, very much, if you don't have a succession plan, get one. So to finish us off, I always do something called a rapid fire questions. So the rapid fire questions, I'm going to ask you 3 questions and answer as quickly as you can. So I think I'm going to start with Jason. Jason, I'm going to start with you. Jason, what do you love to do? What is the number one thing that you love to do?
Right now, it's spend time with my daughter.
Ah, yes. A new father, well, not that new anymore, is it?
She'll be 2 in August.
I cannot believe that.
Yeah.
See, 2 in August. That's incredible. So excellent. What is the most meaningful interaction that you've ever had with a client?
We were helping a gentleman retire a few months ago. He'd worked in manufacturing for 30 years. And when it finally clicked that he could retire, he was so happy. His wife looked at him. They gave each other a kiss, over Zoom here. And that was really special, that particular moment.
I love that. That's emotional. And finally, how do you want to be remembered? At the end of it all, your career as a person, as family man, how do you want to be remembered?
I guess if nobody says anything too bad about me, I'll be pretty happy. But no, I guess just
don't set the bar too high.
Yeah. You know what? If I'm remembered as a good, honest person and a good father, I'd be very happy.
Excellent. All right, Stephanie. Now you've heard the rapid questions. What do you love to do, Stephanie?
Building relationships, whether it be family, clients, friends, all of it. I love it.
You're certainly in the right business for that then. And how about you? What is the most meaningful interaction that you've had with a client?
I've had a client tell me that meeting with me is like a good therapy session, and they always feel better when they leave. So that's like a crazy compliment for me.
Actually, that is a good compliment. And a lot of times we are counselors, not just investment counselors, just all kinds of counselors.
Most definitely.
And finally, how do you want to be remembered?
As being a genuine person and being helpful.
That's good. I've heard that. Spend a life trying to be helpful. I've heard that's a quote of someone, but I can't remember who, but I would certainly echo that. So thank you both for being on the show today. Great insights. Thank you very much. And my call to action. Here's my call to action to everyone's listening. And it's, goes right into the rant. Your call to action is, what is your succession planning? As you've heard from both Stephanie and Jason, it's all about having a strategy. And that strategy is a lot longer than you think. Stephanie's case, it was 10 years. Jason's got to be 10 years, if not longer, right? 15 years. And with family, as Jason said, you have the luxury of time, but not too much time, meaning always try to plan out that this is going to be faster than you think. And yet, if you have more time, that's even better. So my takeaway is, get a succession plan. If you're bringing your children in, have that talk early and have a very long transition to make sure that there's smoothness, there's continuity, and that, everyone can get up to speed on what exactly we do here. So with that, I'd welcome anyone that is listening to this episode that wants to have a virtual coffee to talk about your succession planning. I always put that out there. Feel free to click on the virtual coffee, and I'd be happy to contact you. Stephanie, Jason, thank you again so much for giving us some insight on intergenerational succession planning. And I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. Thanks for listening. And if you like what you're hearing, please give me a 5-star rating. That way you'll find another episode and another actionable takeaway on how to keep building a better business.